Hello, guys. I hope you can see me and hear me well. Please confirm if everything is fine with my connection. And I have to tell you, we have really awful weather today in Ukraine. So it's pretty well for meeting like that online. And I'm very grateful for you joining our conversation. And I have reviewed my previous live stream and noticed that I have left so many interesting questions unanswered and really did not like that. And I was kind of very quick in my reactions, reminded myself of a squirrel. So today I will try to be more attentive to the questions that you ask, maybe scroll them, and I will be, oh yeah, thank you very much that you can see and hear me because I have tested the connection, but you always get this feeling that maybe something went wrong and feeling nervous with all that. But I'm really glad to see you joining this conversation. And once again, I have to tell you that I read all the comments and I'm grateful for your um, advice that you give. And I know the names of many of you, and I feel it's a kind of a very valuable conversation for me. And so I'm really glad to, yeah, you had bad weather yesterday too, which, if you're in Europe, proves that Ukraine is a part of Europe because we saw on the news that it was a really bad wind and thunderstorm in Germany. And yesterday we had that in the western Ukraine. And today it's raining. It's like plus 13 or something like that. And in Ukraine, we have this weird habit. I don't know, maybe other countries also have it. When you pack your warm clothes and hide them somewhere in the deepest corner of your wardrobe, and then you take away warm clothes because it's spring and it's summer. And I did something like that. And now stay at home because it's really cold. Thank you. I'm really happy to read your greetings from these different corners of the world. And we are once again working without a moderator because I believe that I have the best viewers and supporters. So even if we have some Russian trolls in here, it will be fun. And I will be glad to answer all of your questions and whatever. Yeah, the same weather in England. And 7 degrees, that's, yeah, that is even worse than we have right now. Yeah, in Italy, 31, I believe so. I'm more of a warm weather person and I am not a winter person. But, like I have caught myself that I stopped checking weather forecasts because like now other forecasts interest us more. And I guess during this wartime I have never checked what the weather is. And but anyway, I'm a summer type of a person and I always wait for the winter too. And yes, you're right, no bad weather, just the wrong clothes. But I'm a person who sometimes chooses the wrong clothes. And yeah, Norway, I have always imagined Norway as a cold country, and I adored watching series of Vikings. And I was really surprised at some of the last series seasons they have shown Kyiv, which is not really Kyiv the way we see it. And it was so cold, much colder than Norway. In Ukraine, we believe that it is colder in Norway, but in the series, Kyiv was always covered with snow. And yeah, I see that weather is a topic to discuss. Um, yeah, I hear warm weather is good because it causes mud that makes the orc tank stall. Yeah, and I see that they run out of orcs who can uh, control tanks and weapons. They really have shortages of people because of the losses they have here in Ukraine and also in general. And these are the things that I'm happy to read about. And today we had the president of Poland visiting Ukraine and speaking to Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. And this is one of the countries that demonstrates really strong support. And we are very grateful for that. And in New Delhi, India is 45 degrees Celsius. Well, I can survive 45 degrees much better than minus 25 degrees, I guess. So feel free to ask me some questions, because I will continue talking about these things that might not seem that interesting to you. And in general, a short update about the situation in Ukraine. Well, I think that the situation changed seriously when we got Lend Lease and we got so much military support. And uh, this gives us a possibility to take back the occupied territories, and it's really important because uh, with negotiations and peace on the conditions of Russia, we can never have peace, actually, because it is just for a year or two, and then it will come back to the problems that we have. Um, okay, I see some questions appear, and I will be reading, and I'm like always very concentrated when I'm reading. So, uh, what sets people from Western Ukraine apart from the rest of Ukraine, and how do you see the rest? Well, I don't see great differences between West and East of Ukraine, and it is to some extent also the influence of Russian propaganda when they were trying to persuade and to demonstrate that um, we are two different parts of Ukraine, because they felt it might be easier to take the territory that is closer to the border of Russia. But in general, today I feel even more proud about the eastern parts of Ukraine as the western parts of Ukraine. These differences, they always exist, and they exist between the regions of your countries. And I think it's always a nice sign when you travel from one region to another, from the lake shores of the lakes to the mountains. You discover dialects, you discover different dishes, but this is still your country. And another quite example that might suit is also the Eastern and Western Germany, right, that was divided by Soviets. Maybe eastern parts of Ukraine was more industrialized and more under the influence of Russia, but today it is different. There were periods when we belonged to different empires, and my Western lands were a part of Poland or Austro-Hungary, and the Eastern Ukraine was a part of Russia, but many European countries have this sad history of being parts of the empire, but today the majority of the empires fall, and we observe the process of this Russian empire fall. I see many questions. I will scroll up because I don't want to leave them as the previous time, so maybe they will repeat. Do you feel safer now than at the beginning of the war? Um, I feel more adapted. I don't feel safer, but I like this quote actually, that it's extremely important to adapt, and it's so unbelievable how quickly we adapt to different things. And um, if you have told me about this war and me feeling um, like more or less normal, or the ability to sleep or to eat or to buy clothes or to have a stream on YouTube, I wouldn't believe it half a year ago. But the problem is that we get used to these things, and from one point of view that this helps us survive, but from the another point of view, it's not okay to have war in your country, it's not okay to have war in the world. That is why I don't feel safer, but I feel more ready. I feel more prepared. I know how to react in some situations. I am like we have the rules that we follow because, for example, at the beginning of this war, when we had some hits of the missiles on the territory of my city, people started posting them, informing on Facebook in various publics, and that is a serious mistake because it helps Russian to uh, improve the targets and so on. And now people don't make these mistakes, and make people know how to report about some suspicious things. So I think we have adapted to that, and it's very important. Um, uh, must keep Odessa. Yeah, we must keep Odessa because Ukraine is a breadbasket of the world, and we love doing that. And people are very much into agriculture, and that is why I believe it's extremely important to take back also the ports that are now occupied by Russians because they never use them for normal things. I think it was a huge mistake. It was definitely a huge mistake to let Russian Navy stay in the Crimea. It was part of their special operation that actually started long ago, before 2014, long ago. They have planned to take over Ukraine, but they thought it will happen similar to Belarus or something like that. They did not expect that kind of strength and opposition to them. Um, yeah, I have said in videos that I am in a semi-dangerous zone, but I'll have yeah. Uh, how frequent we have missile attacks in my region? In my region, we don't have them really frequent. We had like maybe seven. Some of them were with the victims, and it was really unbelievable. And I have shared that experience, that I have even heard that missile flying. And for me, this is a very ugly sound that I will remember forever. And later, with my creative brain, it was difficult for me not to think that I have actually heard somebody's death flying. And we had 6 victims at the airport in Lutsk. It's a small airport. It's not the trans like was used for some military causes. Of course, we did not have planes then on it, but then they, in my area, they target military and connected with petrol objects. So we don't have, and being like the West was not that industrialized, so we don't have many military plants or something here. So they have attacked a couple of central petrol stations where we did not have petrol because we have learned they do these things, but they also blow up. And the airport and some other things close to airport. But they target Lviv more often because Lviv for them is a symbol also of strong Ukrainian protests, and also many foreign delegations come there. And of course, we have this aid coming from the West to the rest of Ukraine. So this is also another thing. So, but now we have less air raids than it was at the beginning because I see that orcs are running out of missiles and they save them for more realistic zones. But still, from time to time, they target. And it seems to me yesterday or even today, yesterday, they have targeted Rivne region, which is very close to me, the next one, like very close to me. I'm also glad to see all of you. Are farmers actively planting the fields? Yes, the farmers are planting the fields, and everybody, like in Ukraine, perhaps I will record a vlog on that because I had a couple of requests. But in Ukraine, many people have orchards, fields, where they try to plant their potatoes, I don't know, tomatoes, and they have gardens, and it's kind of tradition. Even many people who live in the cities, they have something that they call dacha, which is a summer house, but it's not a summer house. It's a place of slavery where they dig and grow and all of that. And also, we still have many villages where people live from that, like small farmers, and they all try to work hard and they feel this responsibility that war in Ukraine can actually cause famine in some places. That's why people try to, like, I have heard from many people, even in my region, that they plant more than usually because they believe they will need to give this products and to some other zones. And what fascinates me the most is that in the districts like Kherson, like Mykolaiv, in those territories that are free now, or even were occupied, farmers start sowing the fields, wearing bulletproof vests because Russians have mined lots of these fields and they will stay dangerous for a pretty long time. For example, even in Kiev, people are not allowed to walk in the parks, in the forests, because they have left lots of this presents. Some of them look like children's toys, and it may be really dangerous uh, to walk in. And the same about the fields. And I have heard the news about one tractor driving over the mine and blowing up, and some people who were injured while doing the agricultural activities. But people continue doing that, and there are lots of photos you can Google and see them. And I think it also demonstrates another heroic dimension of how people stand against this Russian occupation. We continue doing normal things. And I know that sometimes I get this question like, oh, do you still like go shopping? Do you still eat? Can you sleep? For the first couple of days, you cannot. But then you have to adapt, you have to adjust. You don't have to let them steal your life completely. And it is extremely important, for example, that lots of diplomats and and ambassadors who left us at the beginning of war returned back to Kiev, because this is a symbol that everything is working. So for us, it's extremely important to continue working whenever it is possible. Do the people in Donbas really want to join Russia, or it is just propaganda from Moscow? This is a complicated question. In general, Donbas was a very passive region that lived normally with Ukraine, and these are Ukrainian territories and Ukrainian people, and many people speak Ukrainian and so on. But for I guess 20 years or something, Russia was financing various separatist movements everywhere, including my town. They have various like organizations for protection of Russian language as if it is under threat in the world, and Russian Orthodox churches, various like things, and it is always a mixture of Russia, Soviet Union, and so on. And they have worked really hard, and lots of Russian oligarchs had their or firms and the things in Donbas region. And of course it is also about mines, it is also about coal. So they were trying to another problem is that Ukraine was pretty passive to work with these people, and in many districts they did not have normal Ukrainian television, for example. They watched only Russian TV, and you know how poisonous it is to watch Russian TV. But from what I know, even those who had doubts about like maybe it's okay to be with Russia, now they see completely that it is a wrong choice, because you all know that on the territory of Donbas or Luhansk, nothing new like appeared. And I think for many problematic zones, this was like the brightest illustration that life with Russia, how actually life with Russia looks. But I think that Russia finances various separatist movements not only in Ukraine, and this is the instrument, the weapon that it uses against many European countries. And they have such things like in Italy, in France, they cause problems, and maybe even in the US, they try to cause various problems to, they follow attentively the society. In any society, you can find some problems, and then they start building the fire out of these problems, and this is what happens. But of course, it was a Russian operation, and Donbas was annexed just the same as Crimea. It was not the will of people, and all these referendums, they are not referendums at all, because they were conducted with soldiers and weapons all around. And also, you never have one question in a referendum. You always have like, do you support, yes, no, or maybe, or something like that. And they gave only one question. And of course, people are not like making their free choices when they have armed people all around. This is number one. And second, in Russia, they never count the votes. They decide what they want to count. So, uh, well, Caucasus Mountains. I have never been to Caucasus Mountains. Maybe you mean Carpathian Mountains. Well, Carpathian Mountains is a very beautiful zone in Ukraine, and it unites us with other Eastern European countries. And I think it is a very magical place with interesting cuisine, with very fresh air. It is beautiful in every season, and we have lots of trees there, despite the fact people complain about deforestation. But still, if to compare with many European countries, the situation is not that bad. This is the book behind me about Vytautas the Great, who was the Grand Duke of Duchy of Lithuania. And this is a very interesting state, a medieval state, and my city was a part of this Grand Duchy of Lithuania. And my organization is going to work on one digital project that will tell the history of Vytautas the Great. And I'm looking through this book because it's very illustrative. I thought it has more text, but it has more illustrations. Is it true that Crimea wants to be a part of Russia? What about Donbas? Did native Ukraine speaker got expelled by pro-Russian separatists? Well, Crimea is a very beautiful place, and for a very long period of time it was inhabited by Crimean Tatars, and it is their motherland. And Ukrainians have very good relations with Crimean Tatars, and this is another proof that we never suppress any national minorities, but they are actually not national minorities. They are people on the territory of Ukraine who live here for centuries. And you know that Stalin deported them to Kazakhstan and other areas, and they managed to return only after the fall of the Soviet Union. And for a very long period of time, Crimea, instead of being a resort, was used as a military base, as a navy base. And they have brought like hundreds of thousands of Russian military to the Crimea. So, of course, among the inhabitants of the Crimea, there are lots of people who support Russia because they are Russian soldiers and Russian military men. And if you speak about civilians and other population, of course, they are pro-Ukrainian, more pro-Ukrainian. But I have been to Crimea only once, and I have been to Sevastopol, and Sevastopol is treated as a Russian city of sailor glory or something like that. And then when I was speaking Ukrainian, I had like troubles. People asked me to speak normal language, Russian, or the prices. Like if you want to buy something and you ask for it in Ukrainian, you get it like, let's say, for 200 hryvnias, and if you speak Russian, you get it for 150. And but today I say that Crimea, Russians who were, and after annexation of Crimea in 2014, Russian government has brought like 300,000 Russians from other regions. They have encouraged them to come and live in Crimea. And Crimeans who had resort business lost many of their businesses because people are not very willing to come. And it's so bad, like this places, lots of places in Crimea can resemble, I don't know, Côte d'Azur in France or elsewhere, because it's the climate is already subtropical, and they have mountains, and they have lots of pine trees, so the smells are magical, and they have rich history, Greek history, Turkish history, Tatar history. It's also unique, and they turn it into Russian military base with this yellow water because of old ships that sleep there. So it's totally ugly, and now I see that many of these people who came uh, with the help of Russian programs to Crimea, they escape. They start selling their apartments because they believe Ukraine will take back Crimea. And for native Crimeans, it is definitely more of good news, because they see that life with Russia is definitely bad. And of course, Crimean Tatars, many of their leaders now live in mainland Ukraine, if you can say so, and we have very good relations. And I think that the normal future of Crimea would be a kind of resort. Um, how are you? I'm okay, thank you, more or less. Uh, well, you asked me about a cross, and um, well, I believe in God. I'm an Orthodox, and I'm an Christian Orthodox because, like, I was born in an Orthodox family, but I belong to this like modern and Ukrainian, of course, Orthodox Church. And I have answered that in comments to someone. I can freely pray in a Catholic church or in a Protestant church, and in general, I'm very tolerant to the religions because I truly believe that God is one, and we just use different languages and different filters to address Him. Do Ukrainians think that Viktor Orban is putting Trojan horse in Europe? Well, definitely Orban is not our favorite man. I don't like him, and what is good that many Ukrainians have been to Hungary and they love Hungary, and we try not to associate um, Hungarian people with Orban because, like, we had Yanukovych, for example, and we didn't want to be associated with him. But I think that Orban can be bad for Hungary too, because from what I have learned, he is a tool for a pretty long period of time, and people who are under influence of Russia, they are always uh, dangerous. And of course, I'm sure there are some decisions that need to be ratified or supported by all the EU members, and this may cause some problems. But I do hope that negotiation mechanisms that can help us. Or also, I know that the new president of Hungary has a little bit different opinion, and maybe she will have more influence. But definitely, kind of. Orban is not a favorite person here. I did like the joke. It seems to me you have sent this joke about Bucharest and Budapest and Orban, but like my parents' neighbors have an Ukrainian mother and daughter staying with them. Thank you very much for the support of people. I do have some friends, my close friends who are abroad, and I know that sometimes it sounds weird, but sometimes it's more difficult for them to be abroad than to be inside of this country. To tell you the truth, once I have been on a business trip to Lithuania in 2015, and we had something like we had war with Russia at that time in the eastern part of Ukraine, and there was some kind of increase in activity, and they were telling that maybe Ukraine will close the borders. And I so much wanted to return back home to manage to cross the border before they are closed, because, like, I don't know, I feel very worried when I'm far away from my country and I associate myself with the country. Of course, I'm not the one who will fight with the tank without weapons. I am careful and I try to be careful, but it's important for me to know what's going on here. And this is my country. I love my country. And but I know that many people who are abroad now, the majority of them plan to return back to Ukraine. And reading the news, not being able to see their friends and relatives, they feel really bad. So I'm very grateful to those of you who support Ukrainians, and please forgive them if they mess up or do something bad, because all of us are not in a normal psychological condition right now. Do you think the people of Donbas region are still supporting Russia when they see that? No, I think that more and more people are not supporting Russia on Donbas territories, and not only during this war, but even after the end of like this annexation, when they became a part of, when they actually became nothing, because they were not taken by Russia, and they were left as so-called republics that look really funny, and people stopped having access to normal education, normal medicine. They continue receiving two pensions, or that, which is weird, right? And now I see with all these destructions, I think that those people, a little bit pro-Russian people that lived in some regions of Ukraine, many of them have become anti-Russian. For example, to tell you the truth, when I watched the elections of the mayor of Kharkiv, I felt like he's a person that was very much influenced by Russian culture. He was like speaking that eloquent Russian. He would quote Russian writers, and you feel like, oh my God, he's very much into Russia. And I thought, if we have war with Russia, he will join. And now he is like a hero to me, because he is fighting really strong. He stayed in Kharkiv all of that time. He managed to organize support to people. He was speaking to them every day. His life was definitely in danger, but he did not leave Kharkiv. And now he is like, he says that, well, I believe the war is impossible with Russia, that they are really our brothers, but now we saw their real face. And many people saw a real face of Russia. Many people who did not want to learn Ukrainian or practice Ukrainian in the office or elsewhere now want to do that. And this is what actually Putin achieved with his war, because many were not that pro-Russian, but they believe that Russia is a friend, like Poland is a friend, I'm 100% sure. And then this friend attacks them, starts bombing, destroying their flats. So Russia actually reached another point that it expected. They wanted to denationalize Ukraine, and they did just the contrary. Many people who were like, what's the difference? I'm neutral, I'm not political, became political, pro-Ukrainian, pro-European, and so on. And youth I hear are into education and boxing, not think much. Is it opposite of Russian young? Did not clearly understand the question. Um, Russian young are also different, but I cannot be tolerant to Russians right now, because even those of them who are normal, they do not react. They do not. They could have used this opportunity to free themselves, and this is also the message to Belarusians, Belarus people. They can free themselves using this opportunity. Like all the military are in Ukraine, you can start doing something, but they don't. So this is a problem. Yeah, I know that Russia finances various organizations and various problems, and hackers attack and influence on elections, whatever, to spoil people's life. And somehow they are really bad at doing things inside Russia. They don't control the level of like everything in Russia, but they are very attentive to the rest of the world, and they analyze every minor problem to use it and to spoil the life of the people in that countries. And that is a very dangerous, like, these toxic people who come into your life. They notice some minor problems that you have, and then start, let's talk about this problem, let's discuss, let's dip in. So this is what they do. And of course they also use dirty money, and they pretend to be, from what I see, Russian propaganda is really different for Ukraine, for the US, for many EU countries. They know how to adapt it to the realities of that countries to make it more eatable. So, about Kherson, still in contact. Yes, Kherson is still in contact, and I am confident we will take back Kherson because Kherson is a very beautiful city and it is extremely pro Ukrainian. And I'm so proud I have people who live there. I know that universities and other organizations, they are not afraid to go out on meetings, even being under occupation, and they demonstrate their pro-Ukrainian position, even if they are in danger of being shot. And this is a very strong and beautiful a city. They have the best melons in Ukraine. They grow melons, watermelons, and tomatoes from Kherson are considered to be the best. And many Ukrainian language is very widespread in Kherson region, and it's a very warm region close to steppe and rivers mix with the sea, so it's very beautiful. And people have contacts, of course. We try to make the internet works and so on, and I'm sure our Ukrainian armed forces will take back Kherson because it's impossible, like, to leave it to the orcs. Well, the war in the eastern Ukraine is the real war, and that's why when we think about this, like, the real war started not on the 24th of February. It is just a full-scale war when Russian orcs came to different zones, but it was a serious problem for a pretty long time, even long before 2014, when Putin introduced Yanukovych and various Russian citizens into Ukrainian government. So all of these operations, they were really hidden, and they really hoped something similar was like in Belarus will happen, but it did not. And this frozen conflict, to some extent, in the eastern Ukraine was like a disease that must be cut out. And I think if the world and Ukrainians too would react more aggressively to the annexation of the Crimea, to the war in Donbas, like being more aggressive, not being afraid to actually participate in this open war, not to call it special operation or anti-terroristic operation, but from what I know, various world leaders encouraged us not to start a war because, like, for a very long period of time, this tactics not to make Putin angry was very popular. But you see, with all dictators, the more you listen to them, the more you accept their rules, the angrier and hungrier they become. So the only thing you can do to Putin and likes is to kill them, stop the regime, freeze the people, then work with people for decades, showing them their mistakes, and maybe in a couple of decades you can have normal Russia. That's how I feel it. Do I have any Russian friends? And No, I don't have any Russian friends. It happened like that. I have some acquaintance, but the majority of them live in Germany elsewhere, and they have this normal viewpoint. They realize that Russia today is a very doomed country, and I cannot tell you, but I have already answered that question. That many people who had friends in Russia, it's very difficult for them, and relatives, which is more tragic, it was very difficult for them to persuade that things that are happening here, they are real, and they always try to persuade us that this is propaganda. Like, you see a missile in your ground, and that's a propaganda. Or some of them tell this is a cure, that they heal us. But do Ukrainians trust the Russian legion who say they fight for Ukraine? If there are Belarus and Russian legions, we trust them then, because there are people, and I believe there are people in Russia, and even more, I believe there are people in Belarus who want to free their countries. I'm not a fan of Navalny, as many of you comment that he might be a new future. No, he's better than Putin, of course, because, like, almost anyone is better than Putin, but he is very much into Russian imperialist thinking. For example, he thinks that annexation of Crimea is okay, that Ukraine is something like uh, okay. So for us, like, I think the ideal thing would be the fall of Russia into smaller republics and countries, like because Tatarstan is no Russia, Chechnya is no Russia, Siberia is very different from Moscow, so maybe. But some people, like I do know, there are some normal people everywhere, and those who come to fight in Ukraine, they also get the experience they need, and maybe they will use it on the territory of their countries. What do you think the Russians will do with soldiers from Mariupol? I don't know. I'm afraid to think about that because sometimes I think they might even execute them because they have become really strong symbols. But then I have read they plan to exchange them for Medvedchuk, and Medvedchuk is the oligarch, and Putin believed he was working really hard to Russify Ukraine, and perhaps Medvedchuk was one of those who persuaded him that Ukraine is very much pro-Russian and that we wait for Putin to come and liberate us. So even if they take back him to Russia, maybe they will kill him there. And Putin is the godfather of his daughter, of this Medvedchuk's daughter, and his wife was a popular Ukrainian TV hostess. And she tried to address various presidents, or maybe, but I don't think actually Putin needs that Medvedchuk, so perhaps they will use them to hopefully they will exchange them. But like I'm really happy that they are alive because they could have died a couple of days ago. So this gives them a chance, but I'm very much afraid that they can accuse them of war crimes and execute them, for example, because many Russian deputies think it's okay to do so. Uh, is corruption the main reason why Ukraine is not the EU or NATO? No, I don't think that corruption is the main reason why Ukraine is not in the EU. We do have corruption. I don't think we have it to the extent it is in Russia. And I do think many EU countries have corruption, even from what we see, the ways they supported Russia or tried to close their eyes. And corruption is present all over the world. And of course, it is also a heritage of Soviet Union, and it is much worse in and bureaucracy. But I would not describe us as totally corrupt. And I think that the reason why Ukraine is not in the EU or NATO was this Russian influence. Once I have asked one EU deputy I communicated with, why so many or why so many EU or UK borders were open to cultures that are so different from you, and you're close to Ukrainians, for example. It was very difficult for Ukrainian to get the UK visa, and like we share so many things in common, our histories, our traditions, even food that we eat, like they are closer than some other countries. And he told me that we are very much afraid of the ghost of communism that walks together with you. And I felt like, okay. And I think this is true. I think that many people were feeling like we don't need this Soviets, and Russia was always demonstrating that if you take these countries to NATO or EU, you will have problems. And another thing that we don't often think about, but Ukraine is really big. Ukraine is the largest country of Europe. France goes second. We have lots of population, and when we enter the European Union, it will be felt. And maybe some people are afraid of that because, like, our presence will be felt. But I'm very much for NATO and EU. I know these organizations and structures are not ideal, but for us, it is an extremely symbolic gesture to get away from the Russian world, and that's what we do. We want for decades, and if we were accepted to the European Union after the Orange Revolution in 2004, I believe all of these Ukrainians who died in 2014 and continue dying would have been alive. If we could join the EU when Baltic countries or Poland joined, a totally different history would be. And I think when I think about Bulgaria and Romania, I'm really happy for these countries, but I don't see why haven't Ukraine joined them. It's a question I cannot answer, and I think it's Russian influence. fuel, we have problems with 95, not 85 fuel, and you cannot buy it everywhere. But people understand that in many countries during war, you have problems with petrol and diesel or something, and gets expensive. But it's a war. Героям слава, слава Україні. Uh, Others, many refugees, there are refugees that, like, I think the majority of refugees want to come back home, because you have to understand these are not people. Of course, there is a percent of people who wanted to move from Ukraine, and this is a great chance for them to do so, but this is a small percent. And the majority of people were forced to leave their homes because it's dangerous, or because they were afraid, or because they have children, or because they have health issues, or just because it's bad for, like, and from what I know, many people have already returned, and many people want to return, and they suffer from them. We have shortages of petrol, we have shortages of some things, and but no problems with food in my region. In those regions that are occupied, or where it is really hot, it's difficult to bring. Like, we have medication, we have food, but sometimes it's really difficult to bring it, like it was with Mariupol. And on the news, they have told that they have helicopters, pilots, bringing products to Mariupol, and 90% of them were killed in the process of these missions. So this is the reason when it may be problematic to bring something. And from what I have noticed, and I was trying to shop today, and there are less things, like, because logistics is interrupted, and for many countries, like, it's problematic to trade with Ukraine because they don't trade with countries at war. And I think that, like, and of course we have this inflation or something, the dollar and euro is becoming more and more expensive. So I, like, observe that, and we have to keep that in mind. And of course it influences the Ukrainian economy a lot. Yeah, I know it's hard to join EU and NATO when you have Russia at your border, but this is another reason why we need to join EU and NATO when we have Russia at our border, because I cannot remember, like, any signs that it gets dangerous for Russia or NATO is going to attack. Um, is Russians coming closer to your area? No. Russians are going further from Ukraine in general, and Ukrainian armed forces are counter-attacking, and they have freed hundreds of the cities and villages that were occupied. So in general, we have finally started attacking Russians. So they are not coming, and they won't come here, I'm convinced. Uh, No, there was no sign. I have my tea with me. Like, I have my tea with me, so no. It was maybe a different sound. I don't know. Maybe it was my sound, because once again I resemble myself a squirrel moving so quickly. Are Ukrainians who left at the beginning of the war? Yes, many Ukrainians. I think that many Ukrainians are starting to come back to Ukraine. Many Ukrainians who were in the west of Ukraine are starting to come back to Kyiv, Kharkiv. Many Ukrainians, I have friends who returned back to Kharkiv, for example. Russians still shoot the suburbs of Kharkiv, but they want to live in their homes. They want to start rebuilding. And people are magical. When you look at Bucha and Irpin, they have already planted the trees, they have decorated the fences, and it is a very symbolic thing, because, like, they cannot destroy us by doing this. Thank you very much. That I'm looking fabulous. I'm a girl. I like these things. Did Ukrainians lose morale after fall of Mariupol? No, we don't feel it is a fall of Mariupol, because they have managed to keep Russian troops as long as we needed that, and they have created a very heroic symbol. And now we have more and more weapons and more dead orcs on the battlefields of Ukraine. I don't have a cat. And would you say that the most mothers in Lutsk, young children, have opted to relocate to safer areas in the West or to Poland? No, I think that the majority of mothers and children stayed in Lutsk because we like very much west. But some of them did, some of my friends did. But it more depends. I think it's safe to stay here because when these mothers travel with children, they also have lots of problems. This traveling is not that simple. The children lose contact with the things they need. Typically, they have problems with their timetables and other examples. So it all results in other problems: food, different food, health issues. You don't always get this insurance or enough money, or some relatives who are helping them. So it may be quite problematic for these mothers, and many of them have already returned, and many of them will. So I guess this is um, thing. Uh, And well, I'm really happy that Finland and Sweden are joining NATO. And is it true that some Ukrainians are using the names Javelin? And yeah, and I think it's stupid. I'm sorry, but yeah. And I have heard a story about one. Typically, they give two names. Like in Ukraine, we don't give two names. For example, I have just one. We use patronymic, the name of your father, and the name of my father is not very Ukrainian, Leonard, but they like using like Anna Leonardina would be a typical official address, but more and more Ukrainians use it less. But some give double names, and I have seen on the news one story about Jan Javelin. Uh, about what's going in Severodonetsk right now. Well, they know, like, I don't know what you mean by fresh information, but from what I know, these are the hottest zones, and it's extremely important for us to get more and more heavy weapons to be able to counterattack, and that's what is happening right now. Many towns and villages close to Kharkiv and that district were freed from Russian orcs, and now I hope Severodonetsk area. Um, well, Russia funds lots of things that can cause problems. Okay, some information. I'm sorry, I have did something wrong with the chat, and now it moved really quickly. Okay. Um, some Russian footprints in the politics of other states. Can I watch TV, and how Ukrainians? Well, like of course we have TV. At the very beginning, it was pretty problematic, and I was really afraid that we will have our internet cut down. And at the beginning, we were all very much worried for the first days of war, because we were informed that it's very likely they will cut down internet, that will cut down mobile connection, and those areas that are occupied or with heavy battles, they don't have this connection. And TV we had for a very long period of time, and still we had like one, but it's not one channel. Many channels substitute each other, like 1 hour from one channel, 1 hour for another channel. And at the beginning, they were working from bomb shelters, and it looked so like we were watching TV all the time. You had it turned on, and it was mainly to update the information, like to follow everything. And in general, we did not have problems with the TV. I have even watched Eurovision, you know. Yes, I'm afraid that they can freeze this war, because this is something we don't need. We need to have our victory. Need to have reparations from Russia. We need to stop this Russian aggression once and forever. And I think now that it is less likely that it was at the beginning of this war. But this is something we don't want in Ukraine. We don't want peace at any on any conditions of Russia. This has to be ideally this has to be a fall of Putin's regime, a new normal Russia. And I think that European politicians who think about gas, who think about resources that Russia has to offer, must think that they need to get a normal president of Russia with whom they can negotiate and maybe even get better prices. And of course, he cannot be trusted. He's a war criminal. He's a criminal in general. Yes, there are lots of projects in Ukraine that help displaced Ukrainians, and even in my city, there are a couple of organizations who are responsible for that, and they help these people. They provide them with food, with clothes, with medication. They adapt them, and you can even see excursions on the streets of my city when they inform people about that. Uh, well, people get some support. How do people financially survive? Many people, when so many people die physically, this financial survival is also a problem, but to a lesser degree. The state, the country provides some support. It's not really big. It's a couple, like 6,000 hryvnias, but still also lots of organizations. And for example, if you come with no belongings and no money to live in my region, there are lots of organizations that will provide you with shelter, food, and clothes. So it's not ideal, but it's possible to survive. And of course, many people continue working distantly, or they try, our local businesses in the regions that are not destroyed are very much encouraged to take such people to work. And I know some people who came and work as, waiters or doctors, and they are very accepted, and supported. There are various problems. Of course, it's not ideal, but we do what we can. Some Russians are protesting, which show they could. But when you think about 140 millions people, and you have 0.003% protesting, so I think it's not really good. How can Russians get the news about atrocities? Maybe old radios. I have this another question. Do they want? Because in this modern era, you cannot filter everything. I don't know. I don't think that many Ukrainians develop their ideas from the TV, also internet. And in this modern era, even if some web pages are blocked, you still know how to avoid them. Somehow they know how to listen to or how to download and to watch piracy films. Piracy and copyright, copyright does not exist in Russia at all, and piracy, and I hate that personally. And they know how to do it, and how to learn something about Ukraine, they don't. Just like they don't want to. I think they try to perform this ostrich maneuver. Greetings to Finland. And so, have you seen? No, I don't. I haven't seen Volodymyr Zolkin's channel. I'm just learning to be a YouTuber, because honestly, I really love YouTube and I value our communication, and I have always used it to get the information, but I have never used it to spread the information. So it's total surprise for me that it works like that. And why do you think Russia's cyber war failed? Maybe different reasons. Maybe they have once again, I think they have overestimated their abilities. They can spoil life to people, but when they do it undercover, when nobody expects that, and they can attack and spoil something. But then when you are on alert, and then you are more prepared. And Ukrainian IT sector is not bad at all, believe me. So perhaps we were more unaware, and with the help of the world, and they don't have that many specialists to spoil the life. Yeah, I know that France says it will take 15-20 years for Ukraine to join the EU. I also think this is unfair. And I think that like why we have demonstrated this real European values in life. We have demonstrated how it all works. We fight for that. We don't talk about that. We fight for that. And I have heard from, like, I have some friends in the EU who tell me maybe if they were in our situation, they would have given up, like, for the sake of, no, you cannot give up to Russia, you have to fight. And we have been fighting for this, freedom, democracy, and even reforms against corruption. We need that help. We have been fighting since the 2004, and I think it's unfair. But I do believe that people of France may think a little bit different than Macron. I don't always like what he says, but he's not my president. Let it be. Um, Yeah, was the Portuguese prime minister on the news? Yes. Uh, he was. He looks fine. He visited, it seems to me, Bucha and Irpin, and I think some of my friends say it's bad, it's war tourism and something like that. But I do think it's important to think the destructions that Russia caused to Ukraine, to understand how much we need the support, and to understand how it all, how real this all is. Because when you read about war, when you see the news, it seems like it's different. It is worse than you can imagine. Russians are going further into the ground. Yeah, we have this like memes or something here in Ukraine. Like, you wanted our land, so get in or eat it or whatever. Yeah, I also work for a newspaper. I'm like, my mom asks me, "What are you doing?" Sometimes I say I work as myself. Like, I work to be me. So I do a couple of things. I vlog, and also I write for the newspaper. Also I teach, and also we have an NGO that works in the cultural heritage sphere, and I'm also an expert of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation, which is an organization part of Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine, where we evaluate various cultural projects, and I like it. And also, I one day I will become a writer. um, and Is the Belarusian army still active near? Yeah, they are still active near the borders, and this is their task. They are just like walking up and down to come closer to us, and like irritating our army so that some battalions cannot move to hotter spots because they still have to protect the borders. These are just like um, the rules of wartime. You cannot leave your border unprotected. But for me, I feel safer when we have armed forces in my region. So I think it's okay. Well, some questions. Are you a freelance reporter? No, I'm not a reporter. I'm more into analytics thinking. I like to, but more of an essayist, I would say. I do not report news. I just like think over and demonstrate that all. And okay, I see that we have spent this 1 hour together, and I do enjoy talking, so I kind of can continue talking. And I remember someone commented me that I speak very quickly on my videos, and that is my like problem. I speak quickly and I move quickly, and then when I start speaking slowly and moving slowly, I do not recognize myself, and I come back to the pace I like. And so, at this end of our conversation, I would like to say that I'm very, very grateful that you are with me, and I love reading the comments. And I'm very grateful for the support. I have got patrons and I have got coffees that you buy me, and this is just like totally unexpected because I'm not doing this for money, but of course it's always an inspiration and a motivation. And I started feeling like I want to set up a new YouTube project or something, maybe more focused on history and culture and I think like more professionally filmed. So this is just like my kind of thinking. And I would be, by the way, really grateful if you could tell me what are the things that interest you in particular about our culture and our history, because this don't have to be really complicated subjects, but must be something interesting. And I guess in a couple of weeks, we will organize a new session. And I'm very grateful to you. And I will say in Ukrainian that я вас всіх дуже люблю. See you.